What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Optimize You. We are the podcast helping you optimize every single area of your life: health, fitness, nutrition, mindset, identity, literally everything. We're going to help you take that next step forward and optimize yourself, reach your own true full potential. Me and Matt are trying to do that on a daily basis in our own lives, and hopefully you gain a little bit from every one of our podcasts that we drop every week. And if you are enjoying the podcast, please make sure that you just share it with somebody who you think could benefit from. That's all we ask. Share with one other person that you think would enjoy this podcast, would grow from this podcast. That's all we ask from you. And today, what I'm going to talk about is just how I turned a fear into a passion. And really just this podcast in general came from this fear. And I've told this story before a little bit, but I was on a date recently and I started talking about the podcast, and I ended up telling this story to this girl, and she's this lady is just amazing. And we've been going out here for a little bit now. And so a little bit, just a short little stint on my dating life. But I was talking about how when I started coaching, I was legitimately deathly afraid to put the camera in my face. Right? I got to this point where they told me, all right, start a Facebook group. Now every week you're going to do a live training. Right? And for those of you who watch this podcast, listen to this podcast, who have been in the Facebook group, you understand that on a weekly basis, I was doing live trainings. And I literally started out, I was deathly afraid to do this. I could not fathom. I was so insecure to see myself speak, to see myself in front of a camera, that I almost quit coaching. I stopped doing anything to move my business forward, to get more clients. I stopped posting in my Facebook group at the time. And that was like a 3-month thing where I just contemplated. I was like, if I have to put the camera in my face, record content, record live trainings, then I don't think that this coaching thing's for me. And I thought that was the only way. This is the only thing I had learned, right? I was new to coaching. I had just gone through my certifications and I had started working with people, a small amount of people. And this is what I was told was the next thing to help grow my business and help more people and impact more lives. And eventually, after those 3 months, I think what happened was that I just hated my job so much, and I hated what I was doing. And I've always wanted to really just enjoy what I'm doing. My parents are amazing people, but one thing that I noticed from them, and really a lot of the adults that I was around as a kid, is just how much everybody hated their jobs and how much everybody complained about what they were doing. Right. And I kind of just made a pact at a certain point that I was not going to be that person, right? That I was not going to look back when I was 50, 60, 70 years old and just have absolutely hated the last 50 years of my life, right? It was like, oh, I worked a job that I absolutely hated. And I do not put this on anybody who does that. I know there's my parents, they supported me and my brother, and I love them to death. I admire so many things about them. This is just the one thing that I noticed over the course of time of hearing them complain so much about their jobs and not wanting to have that happen in my life. And so I think that was kind of one of those things that I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to record this live training. And I recorded the first live training, and then the second, and the 5th, and the 10th, and the 20th, 50th, the 100th. Eventually I got to a point where I was doing 3, 4, 5 live trainings a week in my group. And I looked at that point and I kind of reflected on this period of time. And I was like, I love this. This is the highlight of my week, coming into the Facebook group and doing live trainings on different things, doing my live cooking episode, doing my live workout episode. And I had met a guy named Nick, who's now our producer of this podcast. And he's fucking awesome. As you can tell, if you watch and listen to the podcast, he does an amazing job. And I met him at a conference, Coaching Con, a few years ago. And we were both new to the whole coaching thing. And we both didn't know anybody at the event. And we met each other. We hung out throughout the event. We decided, hey, let's really hold each other accountable throughout this. Let's hold each other accountable. So we met weekly over Zoom, trying to help each other out. What are we working on? What are we going to work on going forward? Keeping ourselves to these things. And he, at the time, Nick had a podcast that I think he ended up getting 5 episodes into. And a little bit of time passed, and I kind of realized how much of a just enjoyment I got out of talking in front of a camera and helping people out. And like just talking on the various health and fitness and mindset topics that I was posting in the group. And I asked Nick, I was like, you want to start a fucking podcast? Let's go at this together. And so we started the Lifestyle Nutrition Podcast. And at a certain point, Nick he fell off a little bit and kind of got out of the coaching space, got more into producing and editing stuff. And now he does more like reels for business owners and helps with content side of things, helps with other people's podcasts, all of those different things. And so I ended up doing the podcast by myself for a while. And then I started interviewing people. And then I eventually met Matt at a conference, and Matt came on the podcast. And as any of you who have watched for a while, that's our most viewed and listened to podcast even to date. It was an amazing podcast. We could have gone for hours and hours and hours. He ended up having me in the group and I in his Facebook group. And it was amazing. We could have gone for like 4 hours. And I'm like, dude, this is fucking awesome. And I texted him the next day. I'm like, hey man, like, actually, I think I sent him a voice message. And I was like, dude, like, I love the fucking back and forth vibe we got. We seem to have the same like view and principles and values when it comes to health, fitness, nutrition, but we come at it from different angles. And so we always just keep having another thing to say. And he'll say things that I'm like, oh fuck, I didn't think about it from that angle. And I'll say things that he thinks the same thing. And so it just kind of works really well. I was like, you want to come fucking co-host this podcast with me? He's like, yeah. And so now we've been doing that for the last probably 40-ish episodes. And that is something that is really huge to me, is to look back now. We're almost to episode 100. I think we've done over 100 episodes because there's some episodes out there that weren't labeled. Some of if you've been listening for a while, the self-love series, those initial episodes when we kind of broke the podcast up for a little bit, never really got numbered. And so we're over 100 episodes, and it's just crazy to think of where it started, right? The fact that it started from legitimately a fear. Right? I had this fear of putting myself in front of the camera. I had this fear of that I was going to look so fucking stupid. And I'm sure I did. If I look back at my initial reps of doing live trainings, if I look back at the first live training in the group, I'm sure I looked like a deer in headlights and just completely lost. Didn't know what I was doing. Probably was talking to zero fucking people. And now I've been in front of a camera and I've done 120 podcast episodes between my two podcasts. I did probably 200 or so live trainings in my Facebook group. And, over the course of those reps, I developed such a big passion. This is one of my favorite things that I do every week. And so I really wanted to record this podcast just really as a reminder to myself, and something that I've become because of this experience of having such a big fear that crippled me for 3 months before I decided to record my first live training, becomes such a passion and something that I enjoy so much, is that I've become open to just about anything over the course of that. And I didn't realize that until I was on this date and I was talking to this girl, and I was like, that is when it kind of clicked in my head. I was like, oh fuck, that changed me a lot. That experience of having a big fear become a huge passion made me realize that if you're open to trying new things, that you might find something that you absolutely love. And that if you can not even just try it once, but like try it a handful of times, try it 10 times, try it for a while. Like if you put in enough reps over the course of time, it wasn't just one rep. It wasn't like I did my first live training and I was like, this is fucking awesome. I had to do 100 live trainings before I even looked back and realized that I loved doing it, because I had to get better at it. And I had to like learn how to talk and not have to have just tons of notes on things. And not that you can do that too, right? Like some people, they love to have notes. I personally feel like with me and Matt have talked about this, a lot of our best podcasts come when we just kind of put a topic out there and we just go back and forth on it. That's kind of the way that we like to do it. And that's not to say when we have guests on that we don't prepare for those and have certain guided questions, but it's one of those things where I turned a fear into a passion, and with reps that can happen. And with this openness that I now have, I'm willing to try anything. And I know that, I might not be good at these things, but if I do try these things, I might find something that I really, truly love. And I think that, if you understand that, and maybe you look at your life out there, whoever is listening to this, watching this, if you look at your life and you look at some things, is there anything you can find that you really hated doing that became something that you love doing? Or something that you were so bad at that eventually you are super good at because you put in reps in. Like that's what can happen if you're open and you know that it's a process to get better at things. And you might just find, if you decide to, because I early in life was really not open to anything. Like I was very locked into the way of doing things that I like to do and the things that I did, right? I wasn't necessarily like huge on trying new things, or, even with foods, I did not try new foods. I was like, nope, I love these things. And now my the foods that I eat on a regular basis are completely different than when I was a kid, when I didn't eat any veggies and I ate the same 3 things every week. Right. And so that's the thing about this podcast, is like, I'm so grateful to have this and to be just over 100 episodes, to be coming up on, episode 100 labeled, and to be able to speak to you guys out there. And, we really, really appreciate you all. And, hopefully this podcast has helped you a little bit and can urge you to go try something new this week or this month or sometime in the future, and just be open to new things. Cause I know like it's really changed my life. This experience, this story that I told you has really changed my life and has changed made the version of me into a better version of me, just by realizing it and just realizing how much more open I am to everything. So I appreciate you. Hope you enjoy this. If you did, make sure that you like it, leave a comment. If you have questions, leave a comment on our YouTube videos, and we will make sure that we answer those on our next Q&A. Also, if you think somebody could benefit from this episode, make sure you share it with them. We really appreciate it. We appreciate you. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you have an awesome rest of your day, an awesome rest of your week, and I'll be talking to you soon.